For people trying to coordinate schedules, that's the importance of subscribing to the channel. Then you get the bell for the notifications, and you know when we're going live with Ohio State Football Talk and other live streams and teams involved as well. Please like, comment, share the videos, and subscribe right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Steve, we also like to promote here that since we aim to provide best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football, and for the hardcore college football fan, and try to get it right. We're also going to call people out when they spew out facts or would-be facts that are incorrect. So we've got BGPO Football Funk with a comment about the ACC and the Big Ten. They go head-to-head. He says the ACC wins. So I did a little math while you were talking there in your head there, Steve. So for the last 2 seasons, we've got 10 matchups between the Big Ten and the ACC. The past 2 football seasons in the Big Ten is 8-2.
Yeah. And Maryland, wasn't very good last year, and they knocked off Syracuse early in the season. I do remember that one. I don't know if some of the other ones were in bowl games or.
Yeah, Michigan State beat Wake Forest last season. Of course, Ohio State lost to Clemson. Penn State beat Pitt. And there was another game I came up with this past season. There were only 4 matchups. It was a 3-1 series.
Okay.
The year before, it was 5-1 as Minnesota won a bowl game over Georgia Tech, and you had Wisconsin over Miami, and so forth and so on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fascinating. If we can get those kind of intersectional matchups, those they really have a way of grabbing the attention. And there are some great weeks. I kind of plotted the schedule out for a story that I did, and there are a couple weeks in there where it is just dynamite. The number of games. There's I think Nebraska plays Cincinnati this year. And that's whatever week that is, that game just kind of pops off in my head. And Cincinnati is being picked in, where they want to put that group of 5 best team, that glass ceiling at 20. That's I think when people fill out their preseason poll, they're like, okay, I'm down to 20. Who's the best group of 5 team? And just stick them in there. And, I don't know who else Cincinnati play. I assume that's their biggest non-conference game is at Nebraska. I think it's at Nebraska. And that game that day, I think, was like number 4 on the list of games involving Big Ten teams. So that'll tell you that whatever week that is, that's going to be a dynamite week, maybe a mix of conference and non-conference games that week. But I am, as I said, excited about what this 2020 season is going to bring, just because of the unique challenges that are going to be involved logistically. And some states and some schools are going to be able to do certain things in terms of a crowd. Maybe some others won't. And, and people are going to make what they will make out of that competitively. I don't know how big of an impact those kind of things are going to have. You still have to throw the football, catch the football, and tackle and block and all these other things. The better team usually comes out ahead, but maybe there'll be some equalizers, like for Oregon, Ohio State. If they go out there and Oregon can't have a full crowd, we wouldn't get the full Autzen Stadium experience. And so that is, something to think about. But I'm looking forward to this season, and we'll see, how it's all going to play out. Those marquee games, in a lot of ways, this was the case in Big Ten basketball this past year. You look down the line, and the Big Ten schools just did a bang-up job in non-conference play. Ohio State, as an example, beat Kentucky. They beat Villanova. There was another Big Ten team that beat Villanova, I believe. One of them beat Seton Hall. These were all schools that were, up near the top of the polls. And so people wondered as the season went on, why are all these Big Ten teams in the top 20 in the computer rankings? Even a Indiana team that barely was like 500 in the Big Ten was a lock for the NCAA tournament was because the Big Ten as a group went out and took care of business in the non-conference in basketball. And when that happens in football, it bolsters the case for your top teams, your championship team, to get into the playoffs. So if the Big Ten can dominate again this year in the non-conference, it'll be certainly something to watch. I think is Wisconsin a team this year that is playing Notre Dame at Lambeau Field and also playing Northwestern at Wrigley Field. And that's just crazy to think that they're going to play two games at two of the greatest sporting venues in the world. And yet, neither of them are known for college football. I mean, obviously Lambeau Field's an NFL stadium, but that's kind of a unique situation.
I'm amused, Steve, by some of the comments in the comments section, especially when they're based on nothing to do with facts or even basic logic. So we've got a comment here. Louisville would kill Michigan this year. Well, obviously we have no idea, but at the same time, by all evidence, what do we have here? Louisville went 7-5 last year, so they lost 5 games against the ACC, which is a much worse league than the Big Ten, which is a superior conference. Notre Dame went 5-0 because they play 5 ACC teams. They went 5-0 against the ACC, and actually they beat Louisville last year by 3 scores. Michigan beat Notre Dame by 3 scores. I think we've got very little evidence to think that Louisville would kill Michigan.
Yeah, the jury's still out, obviously, on Michigan, how good they're going to be with a new quarterback. And, again, you looked up, they had whatever it was, Ohio State and Michigan, I think, had the same number of guys drafted, 8, 9, 10 guys, both of them. And yet Michigan, only a couple of theirs were in the first 3 rounds. Most of theirs came in the later rounds, where it was kind of vice versa for Ohio State. But that's just kind of splitting hairs. They had talent. They lost good talent, and they have to replace good talent. And so we'll see how it goes. Ohio State hasn't lost to Michigan at home since 2000. I think Drew Henson may have been the quarterback back in 2000 for Michigan when that happened. So, it goes back quite a ways. And, they've won whatever it is now. Is it 7 in a row on this? I think they've won 15 of the last 16 or something like that. So, yeah, it's been quite a run here for Ohio State. And, if they can maintain this going forward with Coach Day and these kind of things, I mean, you got to figure a championship, a national championship, or at least a championship game berth is in the offing. I've thought about breaking down the big 3, Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State, because everybody seems to be, putting those 3 in the top and kind of pull them out of a hat to figure out who's going to be 1, 2, and 3 this year, and just do kind of a deep dive. Because, as we saw last year, Ohio State had to play Clemson. The big 3 this past year was LSU, Clemson, and Ohio State. And Ohio State had got the short straw and had to play Clemson in the semifinal. Otherwise, they would have played for the championship. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. But congrats. I saw in there Clemson 4-0 all-time against Ohio State. And congratulations to Clemson. And let's see here. 3 of them were close games, and then obviously the blowout 31-0 in the playoff back in the 2016 season. But it's become a great rivalry. And Clemson has just as Ohio State, Alabama, and now Georgia kind of cornered the market on recruiting. And they got a player today, a safety, Troy Stellato, who picked Clemson over Ohio State. That just broke out today, that news. Ohio State's already got like 5 or 6 defensive backs in the 2021 class, so I don't view that as a end-of-the-world loss for Ohio State. I mean, it's head-to-head with Clemson. You don't want to lose a head-to-head battle, but at the same time, it was not at a position of great need. So I think that they're going to survive that one.
Again, a bit amused by the ACC comments, and this will be the first one or the last one I will respond to, that the ACC is loaded. I might be off by a game or two, Steve, but I've run the numbers a number of times. I should have it ingrained in my head. I'm almost positive this is the correct figure, but again, I might be off by a game. The ACC was 5-19 against the other four conferences last year. That's how bad they were last year. It was pathetic.
Yeah, and here's the thing. They come out with the top 25. I mean, they had to go. Was Virginia barely in the top 25 to get that bowl bid? You know, the Orange Bowl contract is written so poorly that they basically give an ACC, if there's an ACC team in the playoff, the next best ACC team gets in to the Orange Bowl, period, over and out. And that shouldn't be like that, because you had Florida playing Virginia, whereas you had some better teams that got left out of the New Year's Six, and that was ridiculous. So, you know, Virginia, I don't recall. I think they lost by a couple touchdowns, but whatever it was. But, you know, I think North Carolina is mentioned in some top 25s, and what Mac Brown is there in his second incarnation there so far after 1 year has been exciting to see. He's gotten some recruits in there and done a nice job. And the hope is obviously that they're going to try and rise up and be a team that can, you know, at least give Clemson a challenge in the ACC. Where Miami, some people are talking about them as a top 25 team, maybe even top 15 if things click together there. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. Florida State, obviously, in complete disarray with this Norvell situation that just came down. But give them credit. Cooler heads have prevailed, and they all seem to be back on the same page after 1 day of some player revolt there. But you just wonder, the trust factor, is that going to survive down there? So, you know, they've got this deal with Notre Dame, and Notre Dame has largely taken advantage of it and done a good job against most of its ACC opponents, Clemson notwithstanding. So be interesting this year to see how it all plays out.